You're listening to PlayStation Unchained.
Hey PlayStation Universe, thanks for checking us out for E3 coverage. We're outside EA's press conference. We just saw that beautiful 90 minutes of game footage, including several titles that we're all really excited about, things we really like to see, and things that I think EA really delivered on with good, solid 5-minute, 10-minute gameplay trailers. With the exception of Mass Effect, but Mass Effect was incredible in its own right. So let's start with Mass Effect. We saw a small glimpse of things, right? A CG trailer, new planets, new things we didn't know before, like the Mako reactor, the N7 presence. So I guess first impressions, that trailer ends, it lifts. What did you guys think?
Well, I think it opens it up to a whole new set of possibilities, which is awesome because it showed that it's Mass Effect Andromeda, which is an entirely new galaxy. Mm-hmm. So it could be an entirely new group of species and different races and stuff that would completely open up the whole universe even more than it is already.
Right. Ernest, what did you think of the Mako vehicle? Is it a good thing? Is it back? Are they going to figure it out this time?
I think they'll figure it out. They've had a lot of time to hear feedback from the other games and how, all the complaints and whatnot. So I think they were going to get that down. It was a great way to open up the conference, and, with the new Galaxy opens up a lot more options and creativity for the development team to show us new species, new worlds, new environments, everything that we want to see.
Right. And unfortunately, some of those worlds that we saw were a little more on the concept art side, as it first stepped in, but then we did get some of that good footage from this new desert planet, which we saw the Mako driving around on, and, some stuff in the cockpit, picking planets, operating the ship. So we got the release date too, holiday 2016. Yeah. It's a ways to wait, but not entirely unexpected at the same time. I mean, despite the length this has been in development, being a completely fresh start for the Mass Effect series, not totally surprised by that long wait. So yes, absolutely a very positive start to the conference. So we went right from Mass Effect to Need for Speed, and having come off playing Need for Speed as a launch title on PS4, Need for Speed Rivals, am I right?
Yep.
Was definitely a positive experience, a very good game. There was elements of that they nailed in that open world format and just the dynamic goal shifting as you went. I'll be interested to see how they apply that to the underground, a little more of that street sensibilities that's going to be in this Need for Speed, right?
The urban chic and that streetcar culture.
Urban chic,
yeah. For sure. That's what they're really going for, and that's a really beloved aspect of some of the previous Need for Speed games. Yep. Specifically underground is what a lot of people were thinking that this was going to be a third entry when images and teasers were coming out, but it seems like they're really catering to a lot of customization, the drifting, how the camera angle changes to make it
got
more
really
dramatic.
low to the ground, which is definitely a step up from how they've handled that in the past.
Yep.
I mean, sitting there watching the trailer, I know Will and I, we were both kind of looked at each other as it shifted from cutscene to car and went, holy crap, is this real life right now?
No, yeah, it was just insane how much detail that they can get with the dirt and the water and all the stuff that's on there and the scratch marks and everything was just unbelievable. And kind of like, I'm really happy that they're taking that turn to go back, even outside of visuals, going back to kind of underground and that PS2 era of Need for Speed, because that's when I fell in love with the series, and then I haven't really touched it much since that time, and I haven't gotten invested in it. And then when I saw this trailer, it really piqued my interest, and I wanted to explore it.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if it's a total buy yet, or if it would be, but
it'll kind of depend. It'll kind of depend on how they handle those pillars, right? Those 5 sections of the game, and I think what we're going to see is that manifestation of looking back at the past 10 years, 15 years of Need for Speed, drawing from what they call the best games in the series. And I'm curious what the guys at EA thought were the best games in the series that they'll be building from. But certainly, Underground seems to be one of them. Most Wanted / Hot Pursuit with the cop elements. So it certainly seems like it's on a good start. But that's kind of the blockbuster stuff we expected going into the show. And then we got Unravel, which was a overwhelming breath of fresh air in that conference. In a hot, stuffy conference. Yes.
My socks off.
We've got Yarny in his or her magical self. Just a really splendid looking character with a really good energy. I mean, I walked away feeling with a little bit of a Little Big Planet sensibility, right? That's kind of how the game looked to me.
A little bit of Little Big Planet, bit of Journey maybe.
Yeah.
It's going for that, really trying to, hit that emotional resonance, and I hope it can do it. Yeah, it's a beautiful looking game.
Yeah, the platforming that we saw looked great too, and it looked like it had a lot of creativity involved with it, and the uses of the yarn and how that you're limited to what you can do until you can find more yarn is a kind of a cool idea where you're kind of put on a self timer basically for how quickly you go through it, or you can't make too many mistakes. You have to be smart about what you're doing. You have to explore the environment, and it's not as straightforward as it looks.
Which still leaves some unanswered questions. It's funny how this game that nobody knew was coming, this new IP, almost leaves us with as many unanswered questions as a Mass Effect or a Need for Speed. So awesome start to the conference. Then we deviated into some smaller titles that, we don't necessarily have the same enthusiasm, or at least the same knowledge about, like your Plants vs. Zombies, Garden Warfare, some of the sports titles. Definitely phenomenal showings in terms of graphics and new technology. I thought Plants vs. Zombies looked at an animation level just spectacular, and when you talk animation, you cannot not talk about NBA Live, which just looked incredible in that sense, the footwork and everything else.
Yes, in terms of technicality for basketball playing, and just seeing that kind of footwork and the movement speeds and all that stuff, and the hesitation steps and the little 1-2s and the cutting, and that's far beyond anything I've ever seen in an NBA game so far. I should say we haven't seen anything else in in other ranges, but
and NBA Live has something to prove after the not so great, well, let's just say abysmal showings of the last couple of years.
The last several years have been kind of a shortcoming for them, which is kind of sad, because at the same time too, and I grew up with that franchise too, and I loved it in the late 90s, early 2000s, but so I'm hoping it comes back to that. But in terms of what you can do in the small handoff passing, and you have more control over the ball. And we even talked about in the past with the NBA Finals going on about how Steph Curry doesn't shoot fully at his extension, which makes him a lot of times shoot over a lot of the other players.
Gets it up in the air before they can even react.
And you can actually control that little detail of it, which is just phenomenal. There's kind of a cool attention that they have in there where it's not so set up as okay, you shoot here.
Yeah. Well, no matter what they do with the tech, they're never going to emulate Steph Curry's adorable face. You can't do that in a video game. That's real life magic. We still have two blockbusters to talk about.
You can with their app.
Oh,
that's true.
You just have to find Steph Curry while he's sleeping at home, and now we're
the face scanning, the mobile companion app, which lets you scan your face and puts you in the game. And
in Hoop Dog we trust.
Right. Hoop God, we trust, exactly.
So we have a couple more blockbusters to talk about quick probably won't do them justice, but Mirror's Edge Catalyst blew me away, and there's a few takeaways I have from what we saw this game that really everyone was looking forward to. The more elaborate narrative, or the more important narrative, is a big part of that, I think. When we start with Faith as a young girl and start to understand what her family is like, what that early life is like, and why she's even a runner to begin with, why that's an important element. I think the broader narrative is something I'm really looking forward to.
I think it's doing more also to build that world and understanding sort of the background, and also what the climate is of Faith's world, with the government, that lack of government, and the corporation takeover,
and what's going on with Daniel Kruger, all these
exactly. So I think that's something that we'll also see forward along with the story improving. In
a parkour sense, I noticed a few nice little touches, like footprints and handprints on parts of the walls that presumably other runners had climbed before, as just a nice little maybe a less obvious handhold to players than that brilliant red railing and stuff. There was a little bit of that, but I do think the visual style erred a lot more toward photorealism than the first one necessarily did. And maybe that's intentional on their part, to have something that's maybe less distinctive in a visual sense, but still impressive on this grand scope of the city. Will, you definitely have thoughts about the original Mirror's Edge. So, leaving Mirror's Edge Catalyst and with what we've seen now, where are you at with this game?
The biggest plus was that they had first said that it was truly an open world, and there were no levels and no loading, which is what the first game almost seemingly promised in the original trailers and stuff, and it didn't deliver that. The parkour, I didn't see much change, honestly, from what it was, because the gameplay of the first one was extremely well.
Why change, right?
It's extremely good in the first one, but it was... I need to see more of it before making a real official judgment on how I feel about it. One of the biggest unbalanced parts of the first game was the enemies that were there that had weapons and guns, and you wanted to be able to just kind of nimbly deal with all of them quickly with hand-to-hand combat before they could have time to react, but 80% of the time that wasn't an option. They just gunned you down instantly, and it wasn't
always clear what you needed to be doing in those combat situations.
But this time when they showed some of the enemies where she turned around and there were 3 or 4 of them there, they didn't even have guns, which to me was that's a nice kind of adjustment to it, but it looks like an over adjustment, because if you're in a military police force trying to control the city, you're not going to be free-handed in weapery. It's
Yeah,
just
so
kind of
about finding that
So it just
balance,
I want to see more about that before judging it for that. But the story too, we heard a little bit about it in the beginning of the first game about the origin, but we didn't obviously skipped over a lot of that. But I'd be interested to see what they do to it to make it a big hook, because right now it's a very simple plot line, which is not usually isn't a bad thing for games.
I mean, we're optimistic, right? I think that's the kind of thread. Mirror's Edge is it's as much as we could have expected, and it was a really good showing as far as the conference is concerned. But how do you even talk about beating Star Wars Battlefront? I mean, we all have our histories with the game, right? We all have memories of what Star Wars Battlefront is, what it means, and I personally walked away very, very impressed. We don't even need to talk about the visual aspect. You know, setting aside the authenticity, the attention to detail, the sound effects, everything that made it a really Star Wars experience. Mechanically, it looks incredible. From first person to third person, it's so polished, so dialed in, ready to play, ready to go in these epic landscapes, these epic battles. So, is there anything in particular that stood out to you guys as like, that's what I was waiting to see? That looks awesome.
I think just seeing the scale of these conflicts and having it being fully realized, looking great, and having all those pieces in motion. You know, you've got both juggling your vehicles, your aerial support, and also your ground combat. All of those things coming together, each playing their own specific important part in that, what was it, the Walker Assault battle mode.
Yeah.
You know, that was something that I'm really excited for. I think people are going to be, really excited.
And as I asked that question, what stood out to you, I think I almost answered it in my head for me, which was Mark Hamill, Darth Vader, the Jedi appearance, something that I don't think was ever really confirmed before, but now we absolutely know that the heroes are a major part of the gameplay. So, and
that they're playable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Player controlled.
Which kind of harkens, it's an interesting thing because it kind of harkens to Star Wars Battlefront 2 in that respect. But I mean, what does Battlefront, the new one, need to have for you to really be that game, to be the epic thing it's being billed as?
I think it should have a solid kind of single player mode for a lot of it, because I don't want it to be
one of the big unknowns right now.
Right. I'm not huge into multiplayer games in general. There are some that I find that I get really hooked into, and shooters do come from time to time for me, but even if it's just as simple as the Galactic Conquest in the earlier games and the first ones, just something that you can do on your own time where you can pretty much explore the world and kind of refine your own skills or find out what you like about it without having to be involved with an online connection or anything like that.
Right, and really test the waters for yourself and not have to play that super tight team role, maybe. Yeah.
But I mean, otherwise, there's nothing I would change or hope for after that showing. And it was funny that one of the biggest concerns for me was how the third-person view would look.
Right.
And it was actually kind of funny that they started with first-person, then they switched to kind of a ship view, and then they came back. And I hadn't even realized that they swapped to first person, third person, until I heard you kind of react
until
react to it, and I was like, oh shit, it changed, and it was just it was so seamless, and it was perfect for that, and so they nailed it. I can't. Hopefully, Ernest and I get a chance to play it during our booth tour tomorrow.
Yes, absolutely.
We should be able to.
And then you'll be able to elaborate even further on that with our full video impressions, probably written coverage for a game that size. We're doing everything we can for you guys here at E3. Yeah. Speaking of which, it's about time for us to head off to Sony's conference, get involved, get in line, get our seats for what should be a really epic night with a lot to prove. Morpheus, everything we talked about last night as we were making our conference. Yes, FF7 remake. Let's just toss hoops up there and hope something lands. So we're gonna head over there, but real quick, guys. I mean, EA's in the books. We've seen 3 of the major press conferences now. Where does EA stand for you of the show so far?
I'd put it at an 8.5. Really solid show of games. A lot of stuff that we did expect. Some surprises, like and Untwined or whatever, Unraveled. Sorry.
Just call it Yarny. That's easier.
Yarny the game. So I think it was a very solid conference they pulled out today.
Yep, for sure.
I would say, well, in terms of, I don't think it didn't exceed his expectations as much as Bethesda did in terms of consistent wow factor and like showing a lot of game footage and stuff. But
as we expect from EA, maybe didn't have that humility element.
And part of it too is that they have a core audience that they need to feed with a lot of the sports games that often don't resonate with other people that are there. But you can't really top Battlefront as a showing in itself, but I would probably put it closer, probably like 7.5 or 8 overall for the show, just because we saw a lot of cool things, but a lot of it was also CGI, and it didn't show any real footage.
Yeah.
So it's something I'm hesitant about.
I'm kind of in the middle there too. I think only about half the conference really resonated with me as a gamer, and that's totally fine. But the things that I am excited for, Mass Effect Andromeda, Mirror's Edge, Star Wars Battlefront, Need for Speed, there was enough there that I was expecting and enough surprises to really kind of lift me up and say, okay, EA, this was a really good showing. So yeah, I'm gonna come in right at a 7.5, 8 myself.
And I kind of wish I had been more interested in soccer or football to begin with.
Oh
because
man,
with Pele coming out there, I still felt the impact of
even
that,
on a
but
personal level.
I don't feel like I could appreciate it properly, which is, but
sure.
it was amazing to see somebody like that just show up.
Nevertheless, games are our specialty, so we're gonna kick ass in those games department all throughout this week. So thanks for tuning in for this video. Stay tuned for our impressions of Sony's conference, more thoughts about the week ahead, all of our booth appointments, all the things we'll be seeing, the interviews, the games, all the written coverage we'll be bringing you to supplement that. Thanks for watching, stay tuned, and check out social because we're loving those Vine videos. All right, thanks guys.